Have you ever learned a song, played it perfectly, but then came back to it a couple of weeks later only to find out that you don't quite know it as well as you thought you did? Or maybe you learned a song in a particular key, but then you met another musician and then they asked you to play it in a completely different key and then you felt so out of place. That's quite normal, and the reason for that is because memorizing is not quite the same thing as understanding. Today I'm going to show you an approach to understanding a song, and we're going to use a tune called Yardbird Suite by Charlie Parker. We're going to look at the structure of the song. We're going to look at the chord progressions in the song. We'll look at the function of each chord in the song. We're going to analyze the building blocks of the melody. And with this new approach, you're going to find that it will transform the way you learn, the way you play, and the way you improvise. So let's get into it. Okay, so when you look at the chord chart or the lead sheet for this song, you're going to see that it's 32 bars long. So we can split these 32 bars into 4 sections. So I'm going to call this first section here the A section. And this A section is followed by something which is almost exactly the same thing because it only changes towards the end of that section. Okay. So we have an A section, this one here. That's the A section. It's followed by something almost exactly the same. So that's the only difference, is that at the end we go straight to C. We don't play all those other fancy chords. Okay, so we can call this A section and then A variation. After that, we've got a completely new idea. Okay, and new chords, new melody and everything. So this part here, because it's a completely new idea, we're going to refer to this as the B section. Okay, so the B section plays, and then when you look at the chord chart, you're going to see that here we come across something that we've come across before. So that is the A section that's come back again. Oh, but you know what? In the melody is a slight variation. The chords are the same as the A variation. Okay, and the melody is slightly different. So we're just going to call that another A variation. Okay, so simply put, the structure of this song or the form of this song is it goes A, B, A. If we want to be a little more specific, we can say it's A variation, B, A variation 2. Okay. Now let's go even a little bit deeper into these sections and analyze the harmony. So this song is in the key of C. So C is our tonal center. So that means we want to be hearing C major chord, and we want to be familiar with the C major scale. Okay, so this gives us a feeling of home. So even the melody starts with some chord tones. It starts with a C followed by a G. Okay, so those are chord tones which are establishing our home, our tonal center. So we're also going to call this C chord chord 1. Okay, because C is chord 1 in the key of C. Right. And then it's followed by this chord progression here, which is F minor. Well, I'm going to call this F minor 7 since this is jazz, right? So F minor 7 to B flat 7. Now, in music, we've got what's known as the dominant. Okay, so if we're in the key of C, our dominant is G. Okay, so chord 5 is the dominant. Chord 5 has a strong feeling of wanting to resolve to chord 1. Okay, this is kind of the normal way to resolve a chord, but in jazz we commonly use what we call a backdoor dominant. Okay, so it's not quite the usual thing, but it is the same thing, but it's just coming from a different angle, and that's usually played on the flat 7 chord. So instead of the 5 chord going to 1, if you think of the flat 7, and flat 7 of C is B flat. So if I play a B flat 7 and go to C, that also resolves very nicely. So that's us resolving via the back door. Here's the normal door, back door. Okay, so a common chord progression in jazz is the 2-5-1 progression. So here's a normal 2-5-1. That's us going through the front door. Here's us playing a 2-5-1 but going through the back door. Okay, and it's back door especially because of that flat 7 chord there. Okay, so if we analyze the structure of our song, in the first measure we are playing chord 1, so then we go through the back door and then back to chord 1. Okay, and it's a 2-5 because, well, one way to think of that 2-5 is to just think my 2 is on the subdominant. So if you go to chord 4 and you play a minor chord, okay, so the 4th of C is F. So if I play F minor and then I play the flat 7, that's just a different way of seeing your backdoor 2-5. Okay, so it's like 4 flat 7 going to 1. Okay, right. So that's our first couple of bars. So we're playing back door, and from here what we're going to do is we want to go to chord 6, and chord 6 in the key of C is A. Well, usually maybe A minor, but in this case we want to play A7, which is a very common thing in jazz. On the 6th chord, that 6th chord is sometimes just played as a major chord or as a dominant 7 chord. So there, you might go. Blue moon, you saw me standing alone. So playing that 6th chord as a dominant 7 chord is very common. All right, so we've just played back to Yardbird Suite, by the way. So we played chord 1, we went via the back door, and now we want to go to chord 6. Okay, what we're going to do is to approach that chord 6 from a half step above. Okay, and a half step above A is B flat. Okay, so before I play the A7, I'm going to play a B flat 7. Okay, so I'm going to go half step above, taking me to chord 6. And this whole idea of approaching chords from a half step above is a cool way to approach a chord. Okay, you can actually experiment with this on any other chord. Okay, so for example, you might be going to chord 2. If you approach it from, you might get an interesting sound. Okay, so in this case we're just approaching chord 6, half a step above. Okay, so back door. now we approach half step above. We're now on chord 6. Okay. Now, once we approach chord number 6, the one thing that we want to do is to start going up in perfect fourths. So from chord 6, if we go up a perfect fourth, that takes us to D. And if we go up a perfect fourth from D, that takes us to G. And then if we go up a perfect fourth again, it takes us to C. Okay, so going up in fourths, especially from chord 6, that's a cool way to return to chord 1. And if we play these as dominant 7th chords, so A7, followed by the 2 chord, which is D7, and then G7, that's our dominant 7, which will take us nicely to chord 1. Okay, so now here's what I've got. I've got chord 1, I've got a backdoor 2-5, and then I'm approaching half step above. Now I'm on chord 6, I'm going to start going up in fourths. Another fourth. Okay. Now, instead of simply going back to, or rather going straight to C, I'm going to play what's known as a turnaround. Okay. And one of the common turnarounds in jazz is 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So instead of just going straight to 1, because that might be boring because we're just on 1 for a long time. So instead of us from chord 6 going up a fourth, and then going straight to C, why don't we go via 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Okay, that gives the music a bit more movement. Okay, so that's exactly what's happening in this song. Is there's a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 turnaround. Okay, so, and actually that's the entire A section right there. Okay, so it's chord 1, backdoor, we go to chord 6, approach that chord 6 now in fourths, turn around, and now we're playing the variation, and the variation is the same chords, backdoor, this time no turn around, we just go straight to chord 1. Okay, easy way to memorize your tune. So we've already done the A section, we've done the A variation. A cool thing before I go to the B section, okay, I'm just sidetracking a little bit and then I'm going to come back. The reason why it's important to see songs like this, or to analyze them like this, thinking of the function of each chord, is you then begin to see similarities between songs. So if I think of, I mentioned two things. So I mentioned the backdoor. Okay. There are several places where you might come across that backdoor 2-5-1. Okay. Or the backdoor dominant. So of these two, the most important is the 5. Okay. So wherever there's a 2-5, I'm usually just thinking 5. Okay. And the 2 is simply just creating a little bit more movement, but the 5 is the strong chord which is really taking us to chord 1. Okay, so I'm thinking of songs like Stella by Starlight. So if I play that in the key of C, I'll just play in C so that you can see the F going to B flat, especially the B flat. So if I play, here's chord 4, here's the backdoor dominant, taking me to, okay, so I hope you could see the, and then here's my dominant, taking me to, and so forth. Okay, so that's Stella by Starlight. And then if I take an example like My Romance, that's another good one. Right here. Chord 4. Backdoor dominant, taking me to 1. So chord 4, right? Taking me to that flat 7 dominant. Take me to chord 1. Okay. So if you understand the functions of chords, if you understand that that is a backdoor 2/5 or a backdoor dominant, you'll start to see this in other songs. Okay. Or maybe let me give you one more example. There will never be another you. That would go. I'm about to go to chord 4. There's that backdoor dominant. Okay, so it helps not just to think of the function, but to also see other places where that same idea is used. Okay, so we spoke about backdoor dominant, but then we also spoke about how you can approach chord 6 from a half step above. Okay. And then you begin to go up in fourths. I mean, this idea of going up in fourths, obviously I got rhythm in the bridge. So we go up in fourths. Dominant 7th chords go up in fourths. But if I use a song like Donna Lee, you might see, okay, maybe Donna Lee is a complicated melody, but because this is the song that Donna Lee actually comes from, right? Indiana, that's the name of the song. Just that beginning. In fact, even Donna Lee. I'm playing it in the key of C, okay, just to make it all visible. So. Or actually, the cool thing about Indiana and Donna Lee is it's almost exactly the same chord progression. Guess what? Backdoor dominant, even in Donna Lee and Indiana. And then we're just going up in fourths, right? So Yardbird Suite and Donna Lee are almost exactly the same song, really, in terms of the harmony and the function of the harmony. So let's go back to our Yardbird Suite. So we've already covered A section, we've got the A variation. Let's have a look at the B section. So in the B section, first of all, the tonal center seems to have shifted a little bit. So it seems to, but it hasn't really, because we're in the key of C, right? So if you think of C as your home, there's some theoretical terms that are worth explaining here. So if we're in the key of C, 1 is the tonic, and then 2 is the supertonic, and then 3 is the mediant. I'm just going to stick to those 3 for now. So tonic, supertonic, and mediant. So in this B section, I want us to think that we are in the key of the mediant. So we're in the key of, in this case, E minor. Okay, just temporarily, let's think we're in that key. So here's how the song actually goes. We play in the key of E minor at 2-5-1. So the 2 in E minor would be F sharp half diminished. So there's my 2, and then 5 is B7, and then I go back to my 1 in the key of the mediant, right? So 2, then 5, then 1. Okay. So although this is 1, it's also the 2 in the key of the supertonic. So the supertonic is D minor. So E minor, is also the 2 of D minor. Okay, and this is exactly what happens. So once we've played the 2-5-1 in the key of our median, we're now thinking, okay, now we're in the key of D minor. Okay, so we're going to play a 2-5-1 in there. So there's the 5 of D minor. Now we are on chord 1 in the key of the supertonic. Okay, so let me explain that one more time. So we start off in the key of the median, okay, which is the 3rd degree of our scale, right? So we're in this key. We play a 2-5-1 progression. So this one now becomes the 2 of the key of the supertonic. So now we play 5 and we find ourselves on chord 1 in the key of the supertonic. Okay, so that's a cool way to think of this. So we're in the key of the supertonic. So all we're going to do now is we're going to play another 2-5-1 in this key. And that 2 is going to be a half diminished. We're playing a 2, 5. This time, instead of playing minor, we're going to play a dominant 7th chord on chord 1. Okay, so here's the 2, there's the 5, and 1. But that 1 is not a minor anymore, it's a dominant 7th. That's the quality of the chord. So it's still a 2-5-1. Because sometimes you can play 2-5-1 in a minor key, but you can also play 2-5-1 in a major key, which is what we're doing here. Okay, although we've added a 7th to that one chord. Okay, so let's summarize that B section one more time. So we start off in the key of the median, we play a 2-5-1 progression. Then we move to the key of the supertonic, and we also play a 2-5-1 progression. Okay, so here it is. Key of the median. There's my 2-5-1. And now it's 2, and here's 5 of the key of the supertonic. Here's another 2-5-1 in that same key, but it's now the major key. Okay, so this chord that I called 1, okay, we can also consider this chord 2 in the key of the tonic now. So in the key of C, we can consider this chord number 2. So if we were to play a 2-5-1 in the key of the tonic, that means we're going to go 2, 5, 1. Okay, so now we're back home to the tonal center that we had from the beginning, which is C. So how did we do that? We played a 2, a 5, and then a 1. Okay. So we're starting off key of the median, 2-5-1. We're now in the key of the supertonic. Here's another 2-5-1 in that same key. This is now 2 of the tonic. And this takes us back to the A section. Actually, this the chords are exactly the same as the A variation, but the melody is slightly different. So same harmonic movement, just different melody. Okay, and there you have it. So let's find out if we've learned anything at all by analyzing our song in this way. So we're going from A section to A variation to B section, and then back to the A variation. Okay, let's just analyze that harmony, but let's do it in a key maybe that we don't usually play in jazz, and let's see if we really understand. Let's try it maybe in the key of, let's do E. Right, so, well, to play in the key of E, some of the basic ingredients, you've got to know the E major scale. You obviously need to know the chords in the key of E, so you need to know that this is chord 1, and then there's chord 2, and then there's chord 3, 4, 5, and so forth. Because if you know that, then you can easily play things like the turnaround. So you can play a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. because we know we're going to come across that in the A section. Right, so let's see if we can play Yardbird Suite in the key of E. So, using our ability to analyze harmony, we know that we're going to start with chord 1, right, in the A section. We're going to go backdoor, so I'm going to go to the 4th degree of E, which is A minor, and there's the flat 7 of E, taking me to chord 1. I want to go to chord 6, but I'm going to go there from a half step below. There's my chord 6. I'm going to go up a 4th from C sharp, that means F sharp. I'm going to go up a 4th again. And here's my turnaround, 3, 6, 2, 5. And then I'm back home. Okay. And now I'm playing the A variation. Backdoor. Half step below 6. I go up a 5th. I'm in a 4th. And then up a 4th again. Okay. So now I'm in the B section. So I'm going to look for the key of my mediant. And my mediant is G sharp. I'm going to play a 2-5-1. So the 2 of G sharp is, that's a 2-5-1 in the key of G sharp minor. So, and there's my 2. Okay, and this 2 now becomes, this 1 now becomes the 2 of the key of the supertonic, which is F sharp. So this is 2, 5, and then 1. Okay. So let me explain that again. Here's that B section, key of the mediant. 2, 5, 1. This 2 now becomes 1 of the supertonic. And here's, and then I play a 2, 5, 1 again in the key of the supertonic. Half diminished, right? This time, instead of my 1 being a minor, it's a dominant. Okay. I go up a 4th, because this is now the 2 of the tonic. Okay, F sharp 7 is the 2 of E. And here's the 5 of E. And now I'm home. I'm back, A variation, backdoor. Chord 1, half step below 6. I go up a 4th. And there it is. I've played the harmony of Yardbird Suite in a different key using my analysis. Okay, and I'm going to do this in one more key, and this time I'm going to go through it quite quickly, just so that we can see that, okay, the concepts are mastered. Okay, so I'm going to do this in A flat. As I'm playing it, I also want you to observe the similarities between this and maybe a song like Donna Lee. Okay. Or Indiana, if you've played Indiana in A flat. So here's chord 1, right? In the key of A flat. Again, you've got to know, and you've got to know your chords. Tonic, supertonic, mediant, right? Subdominant, dominant, and all that. So if you know that, then you'll figure this out very quickly. So the song starts on chord 1, right? I'm going via the back door, so I look for the 4th degree. Play a 2-5, taking me back to chord 1. I want to go to chord 6, but from a half step below. I go up a 4th from F. I go up a 4th again. I'm playing a turnaround. Time for the variation. Back door. 6. Up a 4th. Up a 4th again. Okay, and then B section, I'm going to the key of the mediant, which is, I'm going to play a 2-5. That now becomes the 2 of my supertonic. And here's my supertonic. I'm going to play a 2-5-1. My 2 is a dominant chord. If I go up a 4th, there's my 5, and I'm back to the A section. Backdoor, half a step below the 6th, there's the 6th, go up a 4th, go up a 4th again. Okay, so using harmonic analysis, transposing songs becomes very easy, and I think for me, most importantly, you begin to see similarities between songs. Okay, so what this helps with is, even when you're improvising, you can use the same language that you acquired in one song, and now you can apply it in another song, okay, and maybe even in any key. So the cool thing about this, if you go past this part here, that's what you play in Donna Lee, right? Chord 1, half step below, going to the 6th, go up a 4th, and then go up a 4th again. So the harmonic structure of Donna Lee in a lot of ways is similar to the harmonic structure of Yardbird Suite. Okay, so very useful for you to learn songs in this manner. The other thing that's quite useful is, yes, you've got to know the harmony and the functions of the chords, but what also helps is analyzing the melody of a song. Okay, so going back to Yardbird Suite in the key of C, if I go, it's useful for you to really know that the song starts on the 1st degree of the scale. Then you go down a 4th to the 5th degree of the scale. So you're going, okay. From there we go up the scale a 2nd, and then we find ourselves on flat 7, and then flat 6. Okay, so let me explain that melody one more time. So you're playing the 1st degree of the scale, the 5th degree, 6th, flat 7, and then flat 6. From there, you also want to know that you're going to go and play the flat 3. Okay, all these are maybe scale degrees based on the note C. So 1 to 5 to 6 to flat 7 to flat 6, and then flat 3, and then 4, 5, and then I end on 3. Okay, so why is that useful? Again, for transposing, and it's actually very good for ear training as well. Okay, so if I go, okay, so that was based on the C major scale. If I said to myself, okay, let me do that, let's see what's unrelated. Maybe let's do it in the key of D. Okay. It's quite useful for you to know that, okay, I start on the 1st degree of the scale, although it's an octave higher, but that's still note number 1. I go to 5, go to 6, and then flat 7, flat 6, and then I look for my flat 3, go up the scale, 5, 5, 3. Okay, so this is a useful approach, especially when you are starting with a melody. But what's going to happen is, once you've done this a number of times, okay, and I repeat, a number of times, okay, so that's probably over some months, or in some cases even some years. Okay, for some people it might even be just a few weeks, and you're like, I get it now. If you analyze your melodies in this way, thinking of your scale degrees and which direction the notes are going they going up or down? Is it a big leap, or is it a small movement up or down? What you'll realize is the connection between your ear and your fingers will strengthen, and you will start to, I could call it guessing or approximating which direction your notes are going, and also how far you're going. Okay, and sometimes you'll make mistakes, but you'll probably be correct more times than you are wrong. Okay, so by doing this over and over, you're going to strengthen your ear, okay, so that your fingers will automatically know where to go. It might be impossible to believe at first, but try it on a number of songs and you realize. So I could say C sharp. Okay, and this is without giving it any thought. Maybe the only thing I'll think about is, okay, I start on the tonic, right? See, there was a mistake, and that's fine. So second time, you know, okay, you went too far off. And then, see, all that I wasn't really thinking about, but my fingers were approximating the direction and the distance in which the notes should go. Okay, so the first step that I would recommend is analyze your tune by interval, and when you're learning it in another key, try and think about exactly how you're doing it. Okay, and then it will all make sense. So here is a challenge that I would like to throw out to you. So pick a song, jazz standard that you already know or that you already play. You could even pick a new one if you want. And then the first thing I would suggest is, suppose you get your lead sheet there, or you just write the chords down. What I would suggest is, in pencil maybe, you can start to make a harmonic analysis of that song. Okay, so does your song start on the tonic? So does it start on chord 1? Is there 2-5-1 in there? Does your song at some point go to a different key? You know, and is that maybe a 2-5-1 in that new key? Does it come back to the original key? Are there any things that are similar in this song? Oh, so then you can say, oh, okay, I actually see that this song starts with an A section and then it goes to a B section, and maybe that's it. So maybe it goes A, B, or your song might just be an A section, or it might be A, B, C, or it might be A, B, A, B, or something like that. So what is the form of the piece? And then what is the function of each chord in that piece? What are the chord progressions? Okay. And then I think once you've done that, I would advise that you try that maybe in a different key altogether. Okay. So you might say, okay, Autumn Leaves. That's a 2-5-1. Chord 4. And then here it goes to the key of the relative minor. Okay, so I'm in the key of the submediant and I'm playing a 2-5. Okay, here is the key of the submediant. I've just played a 2-5-1. Okay. So then I can take that to another key and say, okay, what did I say about Autumn Leaves is a 2-5-1-4, and then I go to the key of the submediant. Okay, there's my 4. I'm now going to the key of the submediant, which is chord 6. I'm playing a 2-5. And that's the A section. And then it goes to a B section. Okay, back to the key of the tonic. Chord 4. And so forth. Okay, so you can take any song, try and analyze it, and let's see how this goes. So, that's it for today, and if you've got any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. If you've got different ways that you approach learning jazz standards, or any song for that matter, please also let me know in the comments. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please feel free to do so, and I will see you in the next video.